welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the James Hardy and StructureM Wisconsin area contractor mini workshop, and really thankful for you all just jumping on today. I know that all of us have lots of things to do, but I would argue that the time we're about to share today could be the most valuable time that you spend today, even this week or this month, because we're going to talk at a high level, talk about growing your companies. And I'm so thrilled to partner with James Hardy, such a fantastic group of people and just a company that does things right. That's one of the things I've really been impressed with about Hardy is they do stuff first class. And so an honor to partner up with Hardy again on this endeavor. The background here is that we've got a lot of uncertainty, definitely a changing environment, changing landscape in the business world, in the contracting industry and home improvement. Some things stay the same, some things are changing a lot. And so the goal today is to just come to share valuable wisdom, perspectives. We've got a treat for you today when you see the lineup and who's going to be sharing today. Just a lot of great insight and wisdom. And I'll say as well that sometimes a lot of us know already what we need to be doing. We just need to be reminded. We need a little kick in the pants sometimes to do what we already know we should be doing. And so that's part of the goal today as well. This is not a sales pitch. We are not here to promote a program or sell you anything. This is really content driven. And in fact, if you'll remember when you registered for the workshop, they asked you were asked a bunch of questions, and we actually took those very questions to develop the content that we're going to share today. So these are the answers to your questions. It's not some templated stuff you can just Google all over. This is specific to you, to the challenges you're facing in order to help you grow more successfully, more profitably in 2021. We're going to talk today, just to give you a quick heads up, we're going to talk about marketing. We're specifically, Bruce is going to talk, I think, some about reputation. He's going to talk, he might mention Google has opened up a new category in lead generation, specifically for siding, which is obviously pertinent to the Hardy side of things. Dave is going to be talking about sales and some operations. He's probably going to go over the number one sales metric you might not be measuring right now, but it's critical to understanding what's truly going on with your sales and your sales teams. How to deal with backlog. We're going to talk about, Jeff Prager is going to talk about money, cash flow management, which is such a big part of the contracting world, contracting businesses, and specifically how to keep more of that money in your bank account and not just blasting through it, in and out. So that's the idea of what we're going to cover today. And so to give you just a quick understanding, you might not be familiar with StructureM. I just do want to give you a context here. We are a growth agency specifically designed for contractors. I'm just sharing with you a page off our website. If you want to go to structurem.com growth services, you get an idea of what we do. We've been doing this thing called the Growth Accelerator Program, which has 4 specific phases, and it generates 15 to 50% growth year after year. And typically a company that's doing a couple million, they're at least going to add 500,000 to their revenue annually. How do we do that? You can look at this page later, but we address the big picture. Since our promise to you is revenue increase, not just marketing activity, we address everything from branding to the websites, SEO, ads, social media, reputation, your CRM, reporting, and then coaching. As you'll see today, we've got some heavy hitters on board here with StructureM that can truly speak to your business and help you navigate growth more successfully. Nobody needs just more revenue unless you want a heart attack and an early grave, because that's what more revenue alone will generate. Unless you're really matching that up operationally and financially, then that's not actually what you want at the end of the day, I would argue. All right, so let me just give you a quick introduction to who's going to be on the call today. Yours truly, Bruce Dell, who is the COO at StructureM. He oversees a team of marketers, seasoned marketers who do everything in-house, from web development to SEO to ads to social media, all the stuff and he'll be talking about reputation management. all the stuff that contractors should be doing to get more leads and higher quality leads. Hillary is our account executive, coming to us to you with a strong background in sales and marketing. So she really does a great job understanding how sales and marketing work together. Dave Galati, as I mentioned, has grown multiple 8-figure home improvement companies and has a wealth of knowledge and experience. And he'll be sharing, as I said, more about sales and operations. And Jeff Prager is quite a renowned and experienced individual, having owned literally hundreds of companies. And I'll introduce him in more detail, but he has been a CPA, a CFO, a CEO, again and again and again. So for many, many, many years. So we'll have order today. We'll do Dave first, and then Jeff, and then Bruce. I want to just take a moment again to acknowledge James Hardy. Sherry, I would love for you to just say a couple of words. Thank you, Sherry. I know that you're over this market, and you've been instrumental and a big part of success in these contractors' lives and for Hardy. So welcome, Sherry. Thanks for being on today.
Thank you. And I just want to say thanks to everybody for hopping on it. When we get opportunities like this to partner with a vendor partner like StructureM, who's been partnering with Hardy for years, it's a really neat opportunity to put a lot of synergy together. They've obviously put together a really great workshop for today, and I know they're always content heavy and content driven. So I'm super excited you joined. Thanks for all that you do with me. I'm looking forward to a great year, and hopefully some of the content we can take from today as we plan going into 2021. So I'm excited for a great day, and I really appreciate the time from StructureM to share their knowledge and experience with us.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Sherry. Appreciate that. All right, without further ado, we're going to jump in with Dave here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just give you a little bit of background on David Galati. Dave has been, as I mentioned, in the home improvement and contracting space for over two decades, has a lot of experience in the C-suite. As companies scale up, of course, you grow the leadership teams. And so sales, operations, finance, marketing, he sees how they all work together. He's led a home improvement company up to $30 million. It scaled 350% in 4 years. So that is like a rocket. And to navigate that successfully says a lot. He's helped literally hundreds of companies scale. He has a coach to scale program, which is a really effective way to approach growing your company, as I said, without growing your headaches. So I love to share the fact that Dave actually has a master's in counseling degree. And that is so appropriate because there is a lot of leadership development. There's a lot of head trash, I call it. There's a lot of mindset work that has to happen to grow a company well. And so Dave brings that experience as well. Dave, go ahead and jump in with some of the questions and answers that came up.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. And I appreciate that. Thanks everybody for joining. I love doing these things because part of what I love doing is giving back to the home improvement community and having been in your seat, having understand, one of the things StructureM says is, one of our mottos is when good contractors win, everybody wins. And so our mission is to help good contractors get better and to really create a dynamic where we're representing ourselves as professionals in the marketplace, right? We all know so many home improvement contractors that give the industry a bad name, and we constantly fight against that. So the objective we have is we want everybody to get better, not bitter, right? It's an opportunity for everybody to really succeed. And so that's really our mindset in what we do. And so one of the things I want to really kind of set the context of this is because it's easy to look at a business and say, well, I just need more leads. I just need more leads. That's all I need. I can grow. If I have more leads, then I'm going to grow. And it's really almost kind of like a scenario where you're looking at a business, singularly rather than seeing it holistically. And we know that there's, 4 primary functions of any business. You've got kind of the marketing, which is the engine that generates the leads, the sales that kind of converts that into actual sales department. Then you've got your production team that actually gets the work done, that generates the actual revenue. And then you've got your finance and your admin that kind of supports all of that. And I think what happens is in most home improvement contracts, what I've seen is there's this almost like a big sine wave where that, all right, well, we had a great sales month. All right, now we got to catch up. Ooh, we got to go back down. And so it just creates this constant up and down rather than a steady growth plateau. And you'll hear me, if you work with me and my clients, I try to simplify things. I try to really work under the KISS principle and really have people understand that this doesn't have to be complex. I like to think of a home improvement business as like building with blocks, right? And so you have a marketing block, and that composes of leads, and we understand where those leads are coming from and how many we need to convert. So we need X amount of leads, right, to then convert to X amount of sales. And we know each salesperson has a certain capacity, so I need X amount of salespeople to deliver X amount of sales revenue, right? And then, I got to have the production department, I need X amount of crews to do X amount of work, right? And then I need some internal support people that can process all that work and the finance and ultimately get paid, right? And so part of that is if we're not looking at things holistically, and that's the approach that we take at StructureM is, all right, we're going to generate lots of great leads. Now, what are we going to do with them? All right. And so one of the things I love about all the questions that we get in these webinars is they're all about the challenges and the struggles beyond the leads, right? So it's easy to talk about the leads, but we also want to talk about what it looks like to have a good sales organization and a good operational team as well. So we get this question a lot. How can I properly train my sales staff with lack of experience? So there's two sides to sales training, guys. There's the actual training of the product and of the company and of the offering, right? So if you're in siding, you have to know siding. You have to train on the technical aspects of siding. What we found is in many cases, that's the easiest thing to do. Why? Because, hey, go spend a couple of weeks with the crews, right? Go spend some time with the production manager. Go out in the field and learn. Okay, and to me, that is an absolute effective thing. So if you're not doing that, then you need to be doing it. But here's the difference. It needs to be structured. It can't be, hey, you were out with the crew for 2 days watching an install. You should be an expert now. No, there has to be some systemization around it. So there has to be a level of, even if it's a checklist, a little sheet where they can identify the certain parts that are important to know and to understand. Because here's the thing, when you go into a home and you present, you can be the greatest salesperson in the world, but if you have no clue what you're selling, you're going to struggle. If you don't understand the difference between, if they don't understand the difference between vinyl siding and hardy, that's a problem, right? Brick fascia, all of these things. You got to understand the dynamic, different types of windows, right? Is it low E glass? What about roofing shingles? All of these things are coming to play. There has to be a level of technical knowledge and expertise. Now, the balancing act is, you don't want them to be so technically oriented that they lose sight of the actual sales process, right? So I always like to say, if they can get to 80% of what they need to understand, and the other 20% is hey, let me get back to you on that. That's a good question. Then they have a level of competence and a level of confidence that they need to do it. So when you train your salespeople on the product, they need to get out in the field in a systematized way. The foreman needs to understand that part of their role is making sure the salesperson understands what this is we sell and then how we sell it, and then explains to them how we install it. The other thing is, with the exception of roofing, because roofing, obviously there's liability issues of getting salespeople on the roof. If you don't cover that insurance, there's different things that they should be actively involved in the installation process. So they're not going to lead the crew, but they need to be like a helper. And you need to tell them, hey, you're going to be almost like a helper. You need to learn how this goes. And again, this isn't for the sake of getting free, sales labor, I need an extra guy on the crew. This is so that they can truly understand, so that when they're talking to a customer, they understand the process and how it goes. And then there needs to be a level of follow-up where the sales manager, the owner, whoever is inspecting what the results of that training is by having them kind of recite back to them by questions, and either in the form of a simple survey, quiz, whatever that is, or verbal interaction. A lot of times I don't have that level of a process. Spend an hour with the sales rep and ask them technical questions so that they understand the basic essentials of that. So that's number one, field training, but with a purpose, all right? The other part of that is the actual sales process training. Now, the thing that I see a lot in home improvement businesses, and it's not just smaller ones, it's scaled up ones too, is what happens is the owner looks to find a home improvement salesman that's already sold, right? and they've, oh, he's a millionaire, he's a $2 million. All right, I'm going to bring him in because he can sell. And then, all right, roofing, siding. Okay, great. Well, here's our product book. Here's our pricing. Go sell, right? That's what happens. And so they're bypassing the field training because, and one of the things we talk about when we set up our clients with the brand messaging is, what is company ABC's way? What is the secret sauce? What makes us different? What are the uniquenesses? And a lot of that has to do with the systems and processes that we use. And so part of that is, if there's none of that there, and it's just more of, hey, he can sell, and as long as he sells, I'm good, and I don't have the time or the resources to train him, that's just bad. Because what happens is now you have all your salespeople out selling differently. Yeah, they're selling the same product, but they're selling differently. And so there's no systemization there, and you're trusting that they're selling it right. And you're leaving a lot of it up for things. So part of this is you actually have to have a replicatable sales training process. So we've all heard of the 10 steps to a sale, 8 steps to a sale. There's lots of them out there. They're available. Some of them you can get as a fee for a service. We have some generic stuff that we use, but this is an investment that you need to be able, that we can help support. You need to be able to build this out yourself. You need to be able to say, well, what is our sales process? What does that look like? What are the essentials that we're going to put in? It doesn't have to be this thick. It can be 20 or 30 pages of very concise, these are the things that we do. This is how we warm up. These are the questions we ask the customer. This is how we do this. We build and accomplish this. We take the customer shopping. All of those things that are very consultative, that add value, and we provide real value during that process, right? We don't just go in and, all right, I'm looking at that house. It doesn't look like they can afford a roof. Hey, Mrs. Jones, you really don't want the roof, right? No, okay, great, on to the next lead, right? We don't do that. We have a process that everybody gets the same experience, right? And then what's cool is when you create that culture, then you can actually have sales meetings where everybody's speaking the same language, the same terms, the same piece of the step 3 are, what are we doing here? Then you can do things like role playing, right? Engaging, hey, how to handle that objection, how to work through that. But the thing is that whether they have experience or not, this is the key idea to answering this question. Everybody needs to be the same. You can't assume because they have experience that they're actually properly trained salespeople. All right. And the thing that I see that takes sales organizations like this are the ones that have invest the time and energy. It doesn't have to be a ton of cost to have everybody trained the same way. The other thing that I've found in a lot of cases is that a lot of times home improvement salespeople that haven't really been properly trained, but hey, I went out and sold $1 million. Oh, I want that guy. He sold $1 million. I want him to sell $1 million for me. They come with bad habits. And so bad habits can be very toxic in an environment, especially if you're trying to build a team beyond, hey, I've just got one person. I've run into companies all the time. They've got a $3 million business and they've got one guy doing 2 million. And he's like, well, we can't say anything to him. If he leaves, we're done. Right. And so part of this is the sales team actually holds the company hostage, holds the owner hostage. It's very toxic, very toxic. So the goal is consistency, field training, systems internally and processes. So that's that one. COVID has created real issues, and I think it's actually opened up huge opportunities. And let me tell you why. The millennials that are finally in mass moving out of the cities, and they swore off, suburbia, they swore off, getting married and having kids. Well, guess what? They're all starting to do that. Now, they did it later than the last couple of generations, right? But they're doing that, and they're buying houses, and that's what's fueling a lot of the demand that you're seeing in home improvement is people are not just staying in their homes, but people are buying homes, interest rates historically low, all of that stuff. So it's really a good opportunity for home improvement. But at the same time, it's created a whole different dynamic. So a traditional home improvement sales process is what we call in-home. They don't call it in-home for nothing. We go to your home, we see the home, we see the problem, we give you an estimate, we try to sell you there, and maybe there's some follow-up there, but you take the meet you in person pace out of it, and that creates a lot of issues. And so what we've done, and it's funny because I remember being on a call with Dave Zoho and some of the kind of the leading folks in home improvement right when COVID hit. And people were already kind of, how are we going to modify our sales process? And what we're on now, Zoom, whatever it is, GoToMeeting, Zoom, digital platforms are proliferated. So I've been using Zoom for 5 years. It wasn't until this year that everybody that I know now uses Zoom. And so it's become very custom. People having Christmas over Zoom. I'm making raviolis with my mother and kids virtually over Google Meet this is the world we're living in, right? And so we're trying to make lemonade out of lemons. And so from my perspective, if you have a good attitude about that and understand that this is the world we're going to do, and then if you're not technically savvy or your salespeople aren't technically savvy, they just need to learn and grow. They can't lament about the fact that if I can't have Mrs. Smith touch that window sash, then I can't make the sale. They've got to adapt. And so what our clients have done and what we've recommended do is still offer in-home estimates, but all in-person estimates in-home, but also offer virtual estimates. And I would say right now, by the sample size I have, I'd say about 20% of the people do the virtual estimates. And they do it and they're glad about it. And the ones that aren't, the home improvement companies that are not offering virtual estimates, they're losing the opportunity for those leads because there's a certain piece of the population that's at risk, that has, that's concerned, has fear. We don't want to marginalize those people. We want to come and we want to meet them where they're at. So first of all, in order to overcome the COVID issue, you have to think outside of the box. You have to actually believe that you can sell work using Zoom. And let me tell you right now, I will tell you this. We had one company that we worked with that had significant income and revenue using video conferencing, presentations, and follow-up to actually close business as a significant piece of their growth. And they grew 35% this year. And they owed a big piece of that to the fact that they were able to adapt. Now, does it mean that you have to modify your approach? Of course it does. You have to modify your approach. Is there going to be a touch and a feel scenario? No, you're not going to be able to touch and feel it, but you are going to be able to work through the same thing. And so if you look at me like right now, the big thing about it is, I'm front and center, I'm clear, I've got a nice backdrop, basic stuff, I'm communicating, I'm looking at the camera, all of those things. I've got some notes and I'm organized and I'm going to ask the same questions and I'm going to, hey, Mrs. Smith, part of what we'd like to do is if you could do this on your phone or an iPad or a tablet, show us, go outside, give me a walk around. Go around. Now, a lot of times if it's exterior work, they'll actually let you come in, but they won't let you in. And so you can do a lot of that prep work in advance, right? You can kind of take your measurements and you can make your assessments. You can take your photos. And so then you do a screen share and say, Mrs. Smith, I put a little montage together. If you're using one of the, like Sumo Quote or one of those estimating platforms, you can pre-build your quote up and go through your process in advance and then show the customer and walk them through it. So you need to, if you're a pen and paper person, well, that's going to be a challenge. You've got to be able to convert that to a digital asset that then you can share, right? So it really starts with when you understand the opportunity exists, that people are still doing business and they actually welcome it, and then you modify your process and think through it, then you'll be successful. You'll be successful. And offer the options, right? Offer options. We've had a lot of contractors have almost 3 ways. So they have the virtual, which we're talking about now, and then they have the standard, I'm fine, come on, I'm wearing a mask, the salesperson's fine. But then they have the kind of hybrid where it's literally like, I'll sit out on the front porch, you kind of be in the entryway, and I'll stay outside and we'll kind of communicate almost like there's space between us, but especially on exterior work, then they kind of follow behind and they're 8 or 10 feet behind and you're walking and you're talking. And so it's more of a, hey, we're going to create some boundaries that we're both comfortable in, and I can still do it in person. It's just not going to be at the kitchen table, right? And so all of those things we've seen, and we've seen them be successful, all right? So that's number 2, but we've worked with a lot of our clients, especially in the coach to scale side that I work with on these kinds of things. How do you improve my presentation and sales process? This really ties into that other question, right? So COVID has opened up the opportunity for us to make improvements, to really move things to digital. There's all sorts of platforms now where you can make presentations on iPads or tablets or, and have it be interactive and touchscreen. All of it's available out there. There's so many different platforms. We don't endorse one per se, but they're there. But again, it's going to involve an adaptation that salespeople need to understand, that it's kind of an adapt or die mindset. And it's an attitude where if they've lived in a certain world for so many years and been successful, if they're unwilling to change, they will not be successful moving forward. And so it's really a mindset scenario where we need to say, all right, what is best practice out there? What are people doing? What are our competitors doing? And let's work to do that. But best practice right now is a digital-based platform. I use SumoQuote. SumoQuote's a great platform. It works with virtually all of the CRM platforms. It's professional, allows you to customize it. It can be sent digitally, you can print it, e-signature, direct signature, those kinds of things. You can do it so it's kind of interactive, so you can still have that kind of on the same side of the table. It can be in conjunction with, you know, a typical sit where you're doing product, you know, touching, feeling, all of those things, interacting around it. So it's not taking away, it's just taking away from the 3-part carbon and, you know, the flip book and, you know, my price book and all of that. And it's really kind of centralizing it in a way that's very professional. And I will tell you this gets back to the millennials. These are things that they expect. If you show up to a millennial's house and you've got, you know, the dog-eared flip book and price book and you're rolling in with the, you know, under your arm and all that, that's a turnoff. It really is. And when we talk about first impression, they make that impression. And the one that comes in, polished, light iPad, maybe a little toolkit on the side, very easy, like I'm not moving in for the weekend. Those are the ones that initial impression, they're modern, they're on top of it. So these are things that takes time. There's training programs online for all this stuff. A lot of these vendors provide really good training with their products. So, you know, and some of it is free, some of it is a fee for service. I encourage everybody to invest in that. If there's a technology problem with the culture of the organization, if it's kind of old school. But then the other part of this is you just got to challenge your salespeople to be willing to embrace. One of the biggest things objections that I get from home improvement owners that want to do this exactly, they say, well, I've tried, I get so much pushback, these guys won't do it. They, you know, and look, I don't want to upset the apple cart. You got my top performers here. Well, here's the thing, and we'll talk a little bit about hiring on the next slide. Who runs the company? Who owns the company? Well, you do. You own the company. It's not their company. They're not assuming the risk of success or failure. If they sell, they make money. You know, they don't care. You know, if they sell, they're doing their job. They're not responsible for anything else, but you are. And so part of this is there's tough decisions that need to be made in organizations now, especially as these things move forward. All right, so let's talk a little bit about operations. How do we hire quality labor installers? So number one rule, if you're gonna hire quality labor installers, you have to be looking for them before you need them. And what I mean by this is, and this is something that corporate America has been doing for years that home improvement still struggles with, it's called building a bench. You need to, as an owner of a home improvement company, one of the top 2 or 3 things that you can be doing to work on the business, which is part of what we work to try to train you to get to, is to be the primary function where you're constantly networking, constantly trying to find good help. If you can build a virtual bench of people that want to come and work for you, and so part of that is you're a great company, you treat your people well, you pay your people well, you offer benefits, you offer room for improvement. So you got to get all that in line, right? And you got to have your current employees be excited about working with you. Some of that involves with production, pay for performance models, bonus models, where production foremen can make significantly more income working for you. A lot of people, despite the world we live in with a lot of subcontractors, I believe there's a way to effectively scale using in-home employees. I scale a $30 million business with everybody in-house, no subs, okay? There's ways to do it, and there's ways to do it right, and to have your labor costs be very low and have people make a lot of money. And there's a way to do that by quality and quantity and incentivizing people. So there's all sorts of ways to do that, but you've got to be a place where people want to come to work. If it's turn and burn, churn, I treat my people poorly, you will never, ever, 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 ever hire a quality labor installer, ever. Why? Because you will never get above what your current expectation is. So if you're struggling, you need to take a look in the mirror first, and you need to make sure that if you aren't that person, that someone actually wants to come work with, what does it mean to become that person? Because if you do that, and then you get people talking, and then you go out and you really evangelize your brand, and you get people known, and you're constantly having an ad and Indeed, you're constantly, hey, this quality person, I got a referral here, you're interviewing people. It's a constant piece of what you're doing, so that when you need quality installers, they're there for you. The other thing is, and I understand it's a very tight labor market. I get it. I understand that. Here's the other thing. You'll get the best quality installers from your competitors. And we're seeing that. I've got one client now, they're interviewing like 6 or 7 people. These are all top quality crews from other companies that have heard about how well they're taken care of, how well they're treated, they get paid on time, all of this stuff. So even in a subcontractor relationship, right, people are going to be drawn to the companies that take care of their subs and pay the most and take care of them and do all of that because it's a place they want to work with, right? And if you've got all your systems and processes in place and you know that you can take care of your production crews, whether they're in-house or sub, people will want to come work for you. So first thing you do is you got to get you got to get it right. You got to look in the mirror and am I a company that people really want to come work for? And if I am, how do I spread the word about that? Okay. How do I put effective and efficient systems in place? Okay, so I'm a big proponent of an operating platform called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. There's several others out there, Scale Up, eMyth, Donald Miller's got a new thing, the Business Made Simple. There's all sorts of business models out there, okay? If you don't have one of them, you need to get one of them. That's the first and foremost. A book called Traction, that's EOS. Most people have it. I talk to home, oh yeah, I've heard, do you read it? No, it's in my thing. I don't have time to read it. Get the audio book. These things will change your life because what it does is, first of all, it simplifies how you look at your business and allows you to actually put a platform where the business can begin to operate rather than just the frenetic nature of the energy you put into it, okay? It really creates the platform for you to actually scale. And so that's first and foremost. And so when you look at some of these platforms, they always talk about people, they talk about mission, vision, core values, they talk about systems and processes, they talk about financial piece, right? So there's different compartments that make up the business. But until you understand the perspective of what all that looks like, you'll never have the opportunity to put it all together because you'll be running around trying to chase things as they come, right? Always putting out fires, always working around. That's the symptomatic thing of a lot of home improvement contractors, even successful ones that have built a business and are making money, that are going. So part of that is to make sure that you have a foundation in place. So I encourage whoever asks this question, if any others are struggling, look at what it looks like. These things are designed to be self-implemented. They don't really take a lot of money. They take some dedication, some commitment. If you've got a leadership team, everybody's got to get on board. But what it does is it allows everybody to be talking the same language. It makes your meetings more productive, creating core values and a mission and vision. If you don't have that, that gives alignment. So everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction. Here's what we exist. Here's why we exist. Here's what we do. You cannot scale a business without that stuff. You can generate revenue, but you never scale a business. So that's the first thing. And then, there's lots of programs out there for home improvement contractors that give you different, here's how, to install it. James Hardy provides a ton of resources around production and all of that. So there's ways to, first of all, get the operating platform together, but then use specific things that are best practices in your industry within your vertical, and then leverage those. They might have to pay for a subscription to something, be a member of this community, but there's tons of resources. Here's the cool thing. You're not the first person to own a siding company or a window company or a roofing company. There's those have gone before you that have built some of these things out that are now willing to give this back to you. And sometimes it costs you something, but why try to reinvent the wheel when it's there, right? And again, we're not prescribing any one program. They're all out there. You know where they are. You've heard about them. Now you just need to invest in them. And then lastly is, how do I manage the short form material? So here's the reality, guys. COVID, unprecedented. If you hear that word one more time, you're going to choke. I get it. It's unprecedented. We're talking about unprecedented, right? But the reality is this: in virtually every building material category, and I think Hardy's done an amazing job from what I hear compared to a lot of other. We've got window companies that experience 5-month back orders, on windows, even roofing, other siding companies. So you're dealing with a lot of things: supply chain disruption, obviously labor issues, and demand. And so demand is actually high, and materials low. So it starts with an understanding. Here's what it starts with: everybody's in the same boat. Okay, so there isn't all of a sudden there's this one local home improvement contractor that has some magical supply that nobody else has, right? So understand everybody's in the same boat. And when you have that perspective, especially as it relates to client interaction and all of that, it starts off, managing material starts off with how you set customer expectations, okay? When you're in the home giving an estimate, your salespeople need to be trained on how to set the right expectations around installation, all right? If you know it's gonna be 4 months before you can get out there, don't do the old shortcut and we'll be out there as soon as we can, and blah, blah, blah. And because if you do that, you're not going to be able to manage the shortage, because you're going to have customer issues, people getting angry, unmet expectations, I want my money back, all of that. So it starts up front by having the salesperson be trained to say, Ms. Smith, as you know, these are unprecedented times, And we feel as a company, we need to be very transparent. So I'm excited to move forward with the project with you today. And please know that our commitment is to get this done as fast, but with as much quality and integrity as we can. That you have my commitment for that. You have our company's commitment for that. That said, based on a lot of situations around primarily manufacturing issues, supply chain issues, right now we're currently running on a 4 to 5 month backlog. And I know that might be hard initially to say, but I can tell you, everybody in our industry is in the same boat. The difference between our commitment and maybe some other companies is we're going to be upfront and honest with you, and you have our commitment to communicate through the entire process. Just as I said, the commitment to get this done as quick as we can. But we need you to understand this up front. Everybody's going through it because we don't want to set the wrong expectations. So we take cash, credit, whatever that is. So it's literally embedded in a positive way into your trial close at the sales section. If you set that expectation up front, you will limit all of the headaches that happen 2 or 3 months down the line when all these customers are expecting to have stuff installed and you can't install it. Okay? That's key. The other thing, as an owner, if you have a situation where you didn't do that, and there's an expectation it's mounting now, that customers are calling you, they're all freaked out, why did my job get installed? And you're just trying to scramble and put out fire after fire. You need to get out in front of it. What you need to do is, from you, the owner, it needs to come straight from the owner. Now, you can have someone in your organization that might be more articulate than you and can write creative. Oh, that's fine. But somebody's got to create the thing that's going to come from your email inbox that apologizes, that doesn't make excuse, doesn't throw the manufacturer under the bus, explains in very succinct terms, that shows that you value their business, that you're going to follow through, that you're committed, and maybe you give them a 2% discount. Maybe you give them a 5%, depending again on where your margins are, as a good faith gesture, and you get out in front of it, and then you give them your email or phone number, and you say, please call me directly if you have any scenarios. We had one contractor that sent that out to 200 customers. 100 plus of them replied, thank you. We appreciate you. We understand this is hard. Are there going to be a couple that get cranky and call you? Of course there, because there's always a percentage of the population that's entitled and they're not nice people, okay? And you're going to get that, but you've got to deal with that. And here's at the end of the day, you got to stay calm. You got to be confident. You don't make excuses. And listen, there might be scenarios where you give a customer their money. Maybe there's a scenario that when they ordered 4 months ago, they were good. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe something happened. But you're going to make those on individual cases, right? You're going to try to take care of the customer. But if you have a situation right now where your backlog's out of hand, it's out of control, you don't know when it's coming in, and you're constantly telling, oh, soon, Mr. Smith, soon, Mrs. Smith, soon, Mrs. Smith, you got to get out in front of it and you got to own it. I can tell you if you do that, you'll sleep better tonight. All right. That's all I got. I know I always run over. That's why they let me go first, so I get to cut off everybody else. But I don't know if there's any questions or comments. I'd be happy to answer them.
That's so good, Dave. Thank you. I forgot to mention that we do have the chat window here. We've been dropping a few comments in there and links as Dave has been mentioning things, so that we're going to keep that open and monitor it. We might hit stuff in real time, or we might hold on to stuff till the end to get your questions answered. If you have a question, pop it in there, and we'll take a hit at it. We'll wait just a moment here. And Dave, if you'll stop sharing, I will intro Jeff Prager. Let me get my slide up here. Dun, 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 dun. Yep. Thank you. There's Jeff. All right. So I am thrilled to have Jeff today. Jeff is, as I mentioned, a CEO, CFO, CPA, a business owner. He has grown Strauss Homes in Colorado from 0 to 26 million. He's grown Gateway American Properties from 0 to 150 million. He's a founding partner of Ashworth Golf, clothing and accessories, from startup to a public firm. And he's also authored several books. He's an adjunct professor at the Colorado University in Denver. And just an honor and a pleasure to have Jeff on the call today. And so Jeff, take it away.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. I know you're getting fed with a fire hose today, and I'm going to continue. So based on the questionnaire, I'm going to answer 4 basic questions. And they were, why am I working harder for less money? Why don't I ever have enough money in the bank when I need it? how do I enhance my collections, and what to do about losing customers because of the backlog. So I'm going to address them all. But the first one is, why do I work harder and not make any more money? Now, here's the reality. Your business is in one of these four stages. It's either struggling, and that means that you have poor profit and cash flow. You're surviving, which means you have low profit and cash flow. You're scaling, where you have just enough to get to the next level, maybe, or you're thriving, where you have plenty of cash flow. But there are three big challenges facing every business. The first is not enough money in the bank. There's never seems to be enough. And in reality, this may be indicative of one or two problems: not enough profit, and this is not synonymous, not enough cash flow. Cash flow and profit are two separate things. But the challenge with either case is knowing what to do about it and what the next steps are going to be. Second problem, you're not a financial expert. Financial reports are confusing. They are written for accountants. They are not written for human beings, period. Okay? And they don't tell the whole story. And I'll point out what it's not telling you in a few minutes. Plus, your accountant and your bookkeeper are dealing in the past. They have not been trained to help you improve profit or cash flow. And most business owners need a bridge between accounting information and taking action. And it doesn't exist. And the third problem is you might be in a catch-22. To grow, you need more money. But to get more money, you need to grow. So the natural thing that most of us do is work harder and do more ourselves. But when you solve the cash flow problem, you could pretty much solve every other problem. Now, a CFO is a chief financial officer, and they have a different role than a bookkeeper or an accountant. The bookkeeper, think of driving your car. Your bookkeeper and accountant are sitting in the back seat. One's telling you where you've been, or the other may be telling you how to save taxes. But no one's telling you how to go forward. They're not looking through the windshield with you saying, hang a left here, hang a right. Here's how we get to New York from Baltimore, or something of that nature. Now, previously, CFOs have been unaffordable by small to medium-sized businesses. And when I retired 13 years ago, I made it my mission to bring this kind of service to small to medium-sized businesses. Now, here's what financial statements are not telling you. They are not giving you your 8 key drivers, your number of leads. That doesn't show up in a financial statement. Your sales conversion rate doesn't show up. Your customer retention rate, if you're reselling to your customers. Now, when I own Strauss Homes, how many times am I going to sell a house to another person? You might answer 0, once. I sell them one and that's done. But we found out that there was a certain demographic that we could go back to after 3 years and say, hey, we want to thank you, and we come in with chocolates or a meal ticket or flowers and say, we've noticed you've lived here in our Strauss community for 3 years. And by the way, when you bought this house, you had X amount of kids and your spouse did this. Has anything changed? And if it did, we had a potential to upsell and or get referrals. And by doing that, we could get 5 to 10 houses a year sold. Now, at $15,000 for realtor commissions, do you think selling 5 houses a year without realtors could buy a nice dinner? And the answer is yes, obviously. The number of transactions per customer. A lot of you are thinking one-dimensionally. But if you fix one thing, you see other things that might be able to get fixed and or upgraded. And your average price per transaction. Are you charging enough? Are you charging based on your competition, or are you charging based on your value? Now, those first 5 numbers drive revenue. Revenue is where the accountants come in. They start looking at the number, but not how you got to that number. So that's an important thought. Then you get down to, okay, monitoring your variable costs, subcontractors, materials, efficiency, inputs. Are you wasting material? That leads to gross profit, then less payroll, marketing, and overhead gives you net profit. Now, the natural thing is to say, I got to cut my cost. That's what accountants will get you to think. That's usually not the right answer. The answer is what's causing those costs and how do you eliminate those problems? Now, you get profit. Profit and cash flow are not the same. And I will show that in the next couple of slides. Okay. But those 8 things are what you need to have a scoreboard on all the time. Dave talked about traction. That's one piece of it. Okay. Marketing. Will and I have a great relationship, Will, Dave, and I, because we support each other to make sure that what one guy is doing supports the other 2. It's a great partnership. Second question, how do I get the cash when I need it? This is a huge problem because usually you're not matching the way you get revenue to the way you spend your money. And that creates a big problem. But there are only 2 ways to raise money, internally and externally. I'm going to talk about internal first. Now, this is something I figured out in my first lecture to home builders back in 1976. Follow along with me if you would. There's only 2 things happening with money. Only 2. And this is the way we as business owners think. Screw accountants. This is the way we think. Okay? Money's coming in, money's going out. Can it be any more simpler than that? Okay? So money comes in from selling your products, debt, or equity. Okay? You putting money in. And it goes out for cost of goods sold, overhead, salaries, buying new assets, trucks, cars, whatever, paying dividends or paying back debt. Until the money comes in faster than it goes out, there's nothing for you. Does that make sense? Now, see this dotted line? This is where accountants and you stop thinking the same way. Some of the money coming in and some of the money going out is on your income statement, your profit and loss statement. Those are synonymous words. Okay. The difference between an income statement and a profit and loss statement is if you're making money, it's called an income statement. If you're losing money, it's called a profit and loss. That's the only difference between those 2 words. Okay. So this stuff is showing up on your balance sheet. And I will venture to say most business owners never look at their balance sheet. Let me explain it further. Suppose you made 30 grand, 300 grand, 3 million. I don't care what the number is. Well, what doesn't show on the balance sheet or income statement for most of you, because you're either a partnership, a sole proprietorship, or an S corporation, is your income tax obligation. Suppose it's 40%. Of the 30,000, you're only keeping 18. So your checkbook is saying 18, you think you made 30. Now it gets worse. Let's look at receivables. So you sold 600 grand this year or 6 million. The numbers don't make any difference because I've worked with billion-dollar companies and I've worked with startups. The numbers aren't important. It's the concept, and they apply to any size business. All right. So let's say you sold 600,000, but you haven't collected 41,000 of it, or the increase in your receivables this year over prior year is 41,000. So you made 30, you lost 12 to taxes, and people who haven't paid you cost you another 41,000. You're now $23,000 in the hole. Your bank account has shrunk by 23,000. You may think you're making money, but you're not. The final one is you're paying debt. And now you've lost 33,000. That's a swing of 63,000 from what you think you have in the bank and what you actually have in the bank. And I didn't even go through owner's draw or equipment purchases. And this is the big disconnect between the way you think and the way accountants think. There is a big difference between cash flow and profits. They are not the same. So now you can raise money externally, only two ways: debt or equity. Raising money, putting money in out of your pocket, and or borrowing it. Here's the problem. When you go to borrow money or get equity, regardless, they're looking at your business differently than you are. And I'm going to go through that in a second. But they're looking at your financial records, your reputation, your financial strength. They're looking at a lot of stuff you may not even be paying attention to. And so you're not telling them a good story. And borrowing money is about telling a great story. That's all it is. I really hate to boil it down that much, but you want to borrow money, tell a good story. Okay? Now, when you're telling the story, there's five things they look at. It's called the 5 C's. They're looking at your character, your commitment, your management experience, your integrity. Now, they find that out through alternative methods. They do credit checks. They look at your past employment. They're not naive. They literally rate you on this. And in one of my advanced courses, I had a banker actually show me his matrix. Okay? Second, capacity. That means, look, you're going to borrow money, but can you pay it back? Do you have the cash flow to service the debt? Now, they're not looking at profit. Just like I showed you a couple of slides back, they're not saying you made 30 grand. They're saying you're net negative 63,000 in cash. And then you're wondering why they're not lending you money. Nor do you have a plan, a forecast, a projection, a budget, whatever you want to call it. I call it a guess. I've done these guesses for hospitals, land developers, apartment builders, you name it. I've done these guesses. But a projection, okay, or a pro forma is nothing more than an educated guess. And by the way, they're never right. Never. I've never seen one right. But it's a benchmark. And that's why people do them. Then your net worth. How much pain can you take before you have to declare bankruptcy? And what they're looking at is your net worth. Are you pulling more money out of the business than it's made? If your equity is negative, that's on the balance sheet, they're not going to lend you money. Now, you don't have to technically follow what I'm saying. That's what we do, is we help you and guide you for that. The fourth is collateral. What are you giving them? Banks aren't in the business of taking risk. They want their money back, and they're going to figure out how to do it. And the fifth one is conditions. Okay, what's the economic and political environment about? But the key concept is you ask for money when you don't need it. So there's an old joke about bankers. They're the guys who lend you umbrellas and want it back as soon as it starts to rain. So if it's already raining, you are not going to get the money. So you got to plan. You've got to be a step ahead of your cash flow. I'm going to handle the last two rather quickly, collections. Okay? One of the things is you need to stay ahead of your cost. What I always do is I map out when my costs are coming in and when I bill them. And try to get the progress payments either in advance or as I'm doing the work to monitor that cash flow and keep it as close to possible so there's the least amount of money coming out of my checkbook. All right? Get as much upfront as possible. The more materials, the more you need upfront. The more you're obligated to pay in advance, the more you should request your customer to pay in advance. progress payments or draws need to be due at the start of the phase instead of the completion of the phase, if you could get away with it. Change orders, collect when you sign the change order. Don't put it at the back end of the project. You're paying for administration, plan changes, material changes, coordination. It's costing you money to do a change order. Then here's a little ninja trick. In the last draw, turn it into 2 draws. One on substantial completion, where you at least get a little bit of profit and all your cost recoup, because you always will run into that hard to deal with client who's holding that payment over your head. And then the last one is upon completion of the punch list. That should be a little bit of money, so that if that customer is trying to get into your pants, they can't. You want to hold the upper edge. And cash is the name of the game. Whoever has the cash, it's the golden rule. Whoever has the cash makes the rules. And then the last thing, and this is a big problem, is close out that job as quickly as you can. The longer it takes, the more it's costing you in administration, callbacks, whatever it is. And Dave talked about this. If you can't do it quickly, communicate. So here I am, an accountant. I'm talking to you about marketing. I'm talking to you about production. I'm talking to you about billing, and I'm talking to you about communication. All right? Poor cash flow planning is the solution to your problems. Here's the reality. It's easier to collect money when your clients are waiting for a service than after you've given it to them. Okay? Last thing, backlog. So, yeah, you're going to have backlog, but I have a different look on this. All right? Suppose your gross profit is 20%. Your overhead is 120 grand a year, and your variable costs are 480. Your break even is 600 grand. Okay? So just to pay yourself your salary, hopefully that's in your fixed cost, you need 600 grand to break even. You have a backlog. They may go to your competitors. They may drop out. Charge a premium. If you do 30% gross profit, your new break even is 400 grand. You're doing 1/3 less work and making the same amount of money. Okay? Most CPAs, most accountants, most bookkeepers are not aware of it's called elasticity of price. What's the give and take, and how does that affect your cash flow? And by the way, I always talk in terms of cash flow, not profit. If you're a positive cash flow, I almost guarantee you're making profit. If you're profitable, I'm not sure you're cash flowing. In fact, the biggest cause of bankruptcy of a going concern, the biggest single cause, is they grow too fast, which means that they're not working on their profit margins. Again, do not price to your competitors. So here's my bottom line, and I'm going to keep to my 20 minutes, okay? All right, your business is hungry, and it needs money to keep operating. And you have to make more money. That should be number one on your to-do list. And we, the CFO Project, have only one objective: to help you make more money. Now, to go through the different tranches of your business, we don't guess. This is how we got this affordable to all companies, most companies, okay? We have a 9-step process that we take you through to get you every step of the way, to move you from here to here, here to here, here to here, here to either sale or a cash cow. So that's what we do. And it's a very easy process, okay? And the best part is it doesn't require any work by you. We take all the accounting work, we don't do it for you, but we take the interpretation of what to look at, when to look at, how to interpret it, and what to do about it out of your hands. So if you want a clear path to growing a more profitable business, contact me at the cfoproject.com/rightfit, and we'll give you this at the end in a follow-up email. But I'm going to go right to it. As my thank you for being here today, we're going to give you a free copy of our book. And we'll give you that link too. It's called Make More Money, and there's some real meat in it to help you. And unless there's questions, I literally kept within my 20 minutes. Did I not, Will?
You are a star, Jeff. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's fantastic. And so again, we've got the chat here open. If you've got questions for Jeff, you can drop them in there. As Jeff mentioned, after this workshop today, we are going to send you an email with different resources and links, including these. And so thank you, Jeff. I'll keep an eye there for a moment. Jeff, if you go ahead and stop sharing your screen. Appreciate, Jeffy. What I love about just everyone you're hearing from today is this is a holistic perspective. It is not a silver bullet. There are no silver bullets that's going to save everything for you. It's a combination, a collection of various things working together. Well, our last session here is with Bruce Dell. Bruce is the COO of StructureM, and he oversees, as I said, our whole team of marketers here. He's been working with contractors and specifically marketing with contractors for 8 years. He's been brought into corporate offices at James Hardie up in Chicago on several occasions to help train the Hardie team on the best practices for marketing for contractors. And so I'm thrilled to have Bruce on. He's going to answer some of your questions that you submitted and also just give you some really valuable insights and pointers on lead generation. So go ahead, Bruce. Go ahead and share your screen. Take it away.
All righty then. How does that look?
Yep.
Look good. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for staying with us. I am excited to share with you today. You know, we have been working with James Hardie contractors for the past 9 years, and so we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to that. And I'm excited to be able to share a couple of nuggets to really help you grow your business when it comes to that marketing. And so we've got some fantastic questions that did come in from the survey. So thank you so much. And I've really boiled it down to two big questions that came out. And I'm really excited because this is the first group of people who asked about reputation. And I'm excited to share that because I think this is a huge deal, because I firmly believe that an online reputation is probably the single biggest thing that a company can do marketing-wise on their own, fairly inexpensively, to make the biggest difference when it comes to your marketing. You know, the truth is that 97% of consumers read reviews for local businesses, and 85% of those people trust reviews more than friends and family. And so reviews make a huge, huge difference. And another big reason they make a difference is because it really affects so many stages. You know, we see, and it's even come out from Google, that reviews make a difference to your rankings. Where you rank on Google, the position reviews is one of those direct signals. And so it really affects where you rank. Secondly, it affects who clicks on your listing, the click-through rate. Here's an example of just a quick search that I did in my local area. And I think it's a no-brainer who a majority of people would click on, even though they're second on the list. I venture a good guess that a majority of people are clicking on Everlast Exteriors because of the number of reviews and the 5-star rating. You know, somebody else has 1 review, 4 reviews, 79 reviews. It's a no-brainer that they would choose that one first. And then, as I said before, it also affects conversions. You know, they trust those reviews, they're reading those reviews. And so the person often with the best review footprint is going to win out. And so that's why, you know, reviews is a big deal. But how to get reviews? We often hear that, like, oh, we try. No one it's too much hassle. People don't want to do it, et cetera, et cetera. And the bottom line is you have to have a solid game plan. And so you have to proceduralize it or systematize this process in a way. And the most successful companies that we see are ones that bake this into the everyday operations. This is not something that they focus on once or twice a year, say, hey guys, let's do a review push, and then they don't hear about it for the next year. And then all of a sudden, time to do another review push, everybody. These companies, it's just part of who they are. And so it's a company-wide metric. Everybody in the company knows that it's important. They track it, and it's just part of who they are, and it's in the actual operating process of their business. And so what I mean by that is everybody in the team has a role. They know their role, and it's trained out. And they also have a good time. They also have a champion. They have somebody in the organization whose job it is to really have the best interest and have this as part of their role. They say, hey, review. When it comes to reviews, you're the champion. They spearhead it. They make sure that the process is in line and that everyone is good for it. But they train those out, and so they know that the salesperson has a role when it comes to planting that seed. Hey, online reputation reviews are really important to us. At the end of the project, we'll be asking you for it. They plant that seed early. The person in the office has a responsibility. Hey, when the job is complete, 3 days later, you're going to send an email. And so they have this as a procedure. And then the next thing that we see is they ask repeatedly. Now, not in terms of a nagging way of, hey, every day for 15 days, we're going to send you an email, but they understand that people are busy, that they forget. And so they have a set process to be able to say, hey, let's follow up a few days later with an email, or let's send a note and include the link, et cetera, et cetera. But the best companies always, always, always ask for a review in person. And the best time to do that is when you're doing the final walkthrough of the project. They're glowing. They love the look of their home. Oh, this looks fantastic. Wow, can't believe the transformation. You guys are amazing. That is the time when the iron is hot to say, hey, fantastic. We're so glad you love your home, Mrs. Smith. Most people find us online and our reputation is important. Would you mind taking 2 to 3 minutes to leave us a review? And then the secret is some of the best guys even say, if you have your phone right now, I can even show you how to do it. Versus, hey, later on when you have a moment, do it, because again, people get busy. So they strike while the iron's hot, but then they follow up a few days later with an email. Loved working on your home. By the way, if you didn't have an opportunity, please would you leave us a review, et cetera, et cetera. And they make it easy for the consumer. There's nothing worse than saying, Google us find us on Google, and then, don't get confused between that company. Find the link, do this, do that. People are like, oh, that's just way too hard. So they have software, they have a good system in place, and allows us to say, hey, here's a link, just click on it, follow the instructions. You'll be able to leave a Google review, a Yelp review, or whatever you need to do. And so they make it very straightforward, very easy, and they use software because they don't want the consumer to have to burn too many calories, make it too difficult. Once the customer hits a hurdle, that's it. They're like, all right, this is just too difficult. And then the last point about getting reviews is to incentivize your team. Now, you can't incentivize the customer. You can't pay for a review, but you can make this a goal in your company and say, hey, every person who gets a good 5-star Google review this month is going to get $50. Now, that's what I would venture a good Google review, a 5-star review, is worth. Now, it depends how often how many jobs you do. If you only do 1 or 2 jobs a month, that goes up. If you do a job every day, that potentially goes down. But that will incentivize your team to really carry this on and make it a priority, to remind them to follow up with customers is when you incentivize your production team, your sales team, to do this. And so these marketing dollars paying your team to do that are very, very well spent. But as a freebie, we did a whole webinar on this. And so part of that a few months ago is we put together a review domination checklist. And so we want to send that to you at the end of this workshop. And it really goes into detail about different things you can do, what to do when, how to do it, and follow that. And really, you'll see your review count shoot up. So There we go. All right, so that was the first question, was reviews. The second was a big question, which I've kind of combined into a few things, and that was how to have a better website presence, a better presence online, generate more leads, and drive inbound calls. And so that's obviously a huge big question, and I wanted to break it up into three distinct stages. The first one comes into your brand message, what you're saying, what you're portraying, what your company is all about. And the biggest difference that we see here is the companies who do well differentiate themselves from the competition. There are hundreds and thousands of companies out there that do just what you do in terms of sell siding, do roofing. What makes you different? Why should somebody choose you versus the hundreds of others that are in the yellow pages or online? And so the important part here is to find out what makes you different and to let that drive the message on your website, on the ads, in your sales team, the person who's answering the phone. Everybody has a succinct message about your brand. And so, a lot of people I see when companies first come to us, a lot of people say like, oh, we've been in business for 27 years. We're BBB accredited. We offer quality products, blah, blah, blah. Everyone says that, but you start asking the questions and you start digging deeper in why does that make a difference? Why does that matter to a customer? Why do you do that? Who does that? You only do that. Why does that make a difference? Where you can start seeing the unique value that you offer and then being able to put that in a message that really shows customers why that makes a difference. That's the kind of the back end piece to this, is you've got to tell them why that makes their lives better. And when you can do that, you can have a brand message that helps you stand out from the crowd. So that's the first thing, is to really differentiate yourself. The second piece of this is quite an illuminating graphic to me, because this is a typical search you've done probably hundreds of times for a local contractor. And what this does in the landscape is it really shows how Google is moving. They really are focusing up at the top here on the paid searches. Then you often get the map pack, which is the localized searches. Very often that first value in the map pack is a paid. And then you get all the kind of organic listings after that. And actually, if you take a closer look at some of the paid and some of the organic, they're not competitors. They're actually what we call aggregators. They're just another site that collates a list of contractors. And so for you to actually have a good presence, drive more leads, you want to make sure you're being featured in all these different places. So pay-per-click, paid ads, local organic listings, and organic search results. And so I want to quickly go through what each one of those two main sections look at. The first one here is about having a SEO content strategy. You should really be working with a company or have somebody in your team who's focused on producing good content. If you have an SEO company and they do not produce any content, that is a huge red flag, because to do well on SEO, and what I mean by SEO is search engine optimization, which is ranking, you need to have great content that's targeted to your area, targeted to the services that you have. And so to be able to do that, there's three big buckets of content that should be produced on a regular basis. First of all is to have good pages on your website about the services and products that you offer. Not just one siding page that mentions all the different sidings that you offer, but you have a James Hardy siding page, you have a vinyl siding page, you have a, whatever you're offering, whatever the sub-services are, you have a page that actually is specific to talking about that service. You're also producing good local project content via details about projects, before and after pictures, videos, homeowner testimonials, but you're producing those regularly or collecting those regularly, and someone has been able to put those on social media, put those on your website to really showcase what you do. And then the third element of content that drives SEO to be able to kind of be found online is to create targeted blog posts that really answer the common search questions your customers are asking, because they're doing the research, they're searching, they have problems, they're looking at. When I think about this, I think about the consideration and awareness stage of a buyer's journey. They have a problem that they're aware of, they're searching for it. Now they're looking at what are the options I have to solve my problem. And if you can produce good content regarding that, you can be found a lot sooner than people know that they need you. Before they start searching siding contractor, they're searching hardy versus vinyl siding. They're searching how much does a hardy siding cost to install. And so those are the kind of blog content that you can create that really gets you found on the map pack. It drives the map pack and obviously the local search, and it also drives the organic listings. But that's the organic side of things, and that's obviously a longer road. You've got to make sure you have a clear strategy and someone who's putting in that time. The top of that search result you would have noticed was all about paid. And so really it's a pay to play. Google is in the business of making money, and that's through advertising. So if you're not participating in any kind of paid advertising, even if you're number one organically, you're still way down on the page. And so the reality is you've got to be playing in this space. And paid advertising is that double-edged sword a lot of times, but to do it well and to do it with having somebody who can spend that time, who's actually not just setting it and forgetting it and just hoping that things are, the stars are aligned and they're getting good results, but are actually actively managing that campaign is important. So Google Ads is clear that should be part of, and you can have a small budget. This is not a $10,000 a month budget. A lot of times, $1,000 or $2,000 makes a huge, big difference to be able to drive some good leads through paid advertising. Facebook ads is another method, especially when it comes to retargeting. A lot of times your customers are spending time on social media. And so if they've gone to your website, follow them around. You've seen what that looks like. If you've ever gone to Amazon and looked at a product, but never bought it, they're chasing you down for weeks afterwards. And so you want to make sure you have a digital billboard that's following your visitors around. So paid advertising, retargeting ads on Facebook and Google is important. And then the last one here is really a fairly new thing to the space, which is local service ads or Google guaranteed ads. And this is kind of what there we go. This is what that looks like. And so this is just a search for Madison, Wisconsin siding contractor, and you see at the top of a search result, it says siding pros nearby. And siding is that new category that opened up a couple of months ago. It used to really be big for windows and roofing. Siding opened up a couple of months ago, and we're seeing the competition still fairly low for this category. And so if you're not participating in local service ads or Google guaranteed ads, highly recommend it. The nice thing about these kind of ads is it's different to pay-per-click ads in terms of it's a pay-per-lead ad. So you only get charged by Google when that person actually gives you a call and that's actually a lead for you. And that it's also an exclusive lead. They're not sending it out to 5 different contractors and it's quickest person to the phone who can call the customer. They choose you, and so these are highly qualified leads in many cases, because also it has this whole Google guarantee check mark, which is the sign that Google actually backs them up in terms of a guarantee that this is a verified contractor that has insurance, that has done background checks. And so, again, this is not available everywhere. This is in the bigger cities like Madison or, those kind of things. If you're very much in the rural, small areas, you may not see this yet. But local service ads, we're seeing, have a great big impact on the market and will continue to be so as Google continues to invest in it. So there we go. Now, when it comes to paid ads, the secret here, and again, why we often hear from contractors, yeah, I tried paid ads, never worked. I just got the sense that nothing ever happened to it. Like, you got the sense, which means that there was no reporting, there was no accurate tracking, there was no, hey, you spent $1,000, here are the leads that you got from it. Because if you can't actually calculate a return on investment per channel, hey, here's what your Google ads did, here's what your Facebook ads did, here's what this ad did, then it's hard to know if it really works, because you could just get a bunch of empty clicks or people like, yeah, I'm just looking for one piece of, fiber cement siding. And it's like, okay, well, that's not what we do. But when you can actually track the exact return on investment, saying, these are the 7 leads that we sent you, here are the names and the phone numbers, and you can then track that back to saying, out of these 7 leads, we sold 2 jobs and they spent $30,000 each. That, $60,000 is that return on investment for those ads. Once you can actually calculate to that level, you can then make decisions about whether you carry that on, whether you increase that, whether you change that, and obviously then give that feedback back to whoever's doing that as valuable feedback, saying, hey, here's what we're seeing in our market. These leads are low quality, or these leads are X, and they can make adjustments. So having that loop, closing that loop on your paid advertising will allow you to make kind of smarter decisions and know when to stop and when to start and when to pause for paid ads. So anyway, that was a quick overview on a very broad topic. But another freebie for you, because I love freebies, another freebie is at the end of this the workshop, we're going to send you another thing, and that is our Contractor Revenue Accelerator. This is a 36-page guide that goes through a lot of what we talked about: reputation, paid ads, messaging, but in a lot more detail. So if you want a succinct, holistic marketing strategy to make a difference in the number of leads you're getting, the quality of leads you're getting, then take a look at this booklet. It's fantastic. We'd love to answer any questions that you have from that. So thank you very much. I've kept to my 20 minutes as well. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, that's fantastic, Bruce. Thank you so much. And we are just about to wind this up, everybody, just so you know. We'll answer some questions here. And as we mentioned, we'll send you a bunch of resources after the fact. Great question from Sherry real quick. Do you anticipate any changes in social media marketing this year, price increases, changes in audience, et cetera? And I assume Sherry's referring to the fact of there's this big tension building between Apple and Facebook right now. Apple's trying to drive privacy, and in doing so is reducing the amount of information that Facebook is allowed to collect and use in targeting people with ads within Facebook. And so, yeah, there's tensions rising. There's a lot of unknowns. And I know that Facebook has been sending us email after email saying, hey, we don't know what's going to happen, but big changes. We don't like Apple, but here's what we think is going to happen. It's unclear to us at this point, but I would say a safe bet is that some features within the Facebook platform are going to be increasing in cost per lead, simply because they're reducing our ability to target on such a granular level, and fewer people are going to be sharing their personal information with Facebook. Bruce, do you want to speak to that just for a moment?
Yeah, and then more so from outside of the social media, as, like I said, local service ads, as that competition grows, these companies are in the business of making money, and that's why that bidding system, whoever vetted Google AdWords is a genius, because it's just like you compete against each other. We just make more and more money. And so we're seeing that even with local service ads, that price is starting to increase. It's still very competitive, but those early guys were paying $20, $30 for a really qualified siding lead. You would eat $20 great leads up for breakfast as soon as you could. That's fantastic, but we're not seeing that much anymore, but still they're still good.
Yeah. We'll leave it open there again for any other questions. But I just want to wrap this up. I want to say thank you, everybody. We are also going to send you a link to a free strategy session. So if you would like some one-on-one help with our team to go through your business, answer your specific questions, give you some great insights, ideas, strategies, wisdom on growing more profitably this year, then there'll be a link for you to be able to sign up for that. But I do want to just leave you with one last thought, and it is this really odd, quirky relationship between finance and marketing. One of Jeff's big takeaways is if you can just get a little bit more profit margin, then it fixes so much. Your cash flow opens up. You have to sell less to make the same amount of money. And the connection between that and marketing is that if you have a really strong differentiation, in other words, you've positioned yourself in the market with a greater value than your competitors, then that is the doorway to be able to charge more, to be able to command higher fees and prices against your competitors. Even when they're lowballing, customers will want to choose you because of the greater value you're presenting. And a lot of that has to do with your messaging and your positioning, which is a marketing thing. So it's so interesting how these things work together, but it's also why we're taking this kind of approach to helping contractors grow. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Bruce. Thanks to Dave and Sherry. Thank you so much for putting this together and for your time today. We appreciate you all. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and we'll follow up with an email here in the near future.